And we're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Whiskey Charlie, our monthly show on YouTube. I'm Mo from Mo's Game Table, and joining me tonight are my co-hosts, everyone's favorite Gimp the Limp, TheGimpyGamer, Nate Rogers. Hey, Nate, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, as we were just chatting about. Things are going really well.
Well, we'll talk about that here in a minute.
Companies are bending to my will.
You got that power. Got the power.
I have influence.
And the Wargaming Wizard from Oz, Kev Sharp from the Big Board. How's it going, Kev?
Fabulous. But not for the same reasons as him.
So how's it going fabulous for you, Nate?
No, Nate, tell him everything.
Go ahead.
Like we were just talking about, some of you guys had actually seen, because a lot of people commented on the video about me going after that company because they weren't fixing the headset, the one I'm still having to use now because I don't have a replacement as of yet. Well, right after I put up the video, the first one, they contact me the next day, and they're all like, "Oh, that's so horrible. We hate that happened. How can we help you?" And I'm like, "Damn, that was quick." So they're actually taking steps, because originally they sent me the last email saying, "Yeah, we've looked over your support ticket. Your support ticket's this number, and we've decided to close it because you're done. We don't want to help you." And then the same person emails me back like, "Oh yeah, the company contacted us and we've decided to reopen your support ticket and we're going to be, taking care of it." I'm like, "Oh, wonder why you guys are bending over backwards to stand by your product now." So like I was telling you guys, I did a quick update on it because I want to say when they do right, when they do what they're supposed to do. But like we were saying, they shouldn't do it just because I've got a little bit of a voice and can call them out for not doing the right thing originally. They should do it just because it's the right thing to do and it doesn't piss off your customers and they're willing to come back and buy from you in the future. But I will do a part 3 whenever it settles all out.
So John was saying that he thought you were having another baby, being that we were bringing up some news. So not this time.
No, that's fixed. That's done.
Reading.
No, I'm done. We're outnumbered 2-1 as it is, and most of them are chicks, and this is a problem. They're expensive. They're all costing me a lot of money at this point. This is money I could be putting towards the games, right? And instead I'm having to put money towards food and clothes and keeping them from dying. That's expensive.
Well, whose fault is that?
Tell him to get a job.
I tried. I was holding my little, 11-week-old baby. I told her, I was like, "Go get a job." And she just looked up at me and went, So she said
well,
no.
that's true right there with Old Chestnut's saying it. So as long as you have a YouTube channel with at least 4,000 subscribers, they'll do right by you, which is pretty sad that you have to do that. But it is also good that you're using social media for a good cause and for a good reason.
Oh, that's what I mean. They should do it for everyone, right? Not just someone who's loud enough to bitch and get their attention.
Sure.
It's a product design issue. They should fix it.
But to call out someone good and to get us onto a wargaming topic, I did want to make sure and make note of Company of Heroes board game. Did you guys back that one or not?
No, did not.
Neither of you guys got. It's a hex-based game.
Yeah, right. I really didn't even notice it because I don't pay as close attention to Kickstarter as I used to.
Well, I wanted to talk it up just a little bit if you don't mind. And they didn't pay me. They haven't given me anything, so I don't want you guys to think it's anything like that. But the game is
not what you told me earlier.
The game is excellent. Like, for a game that they have taken and transformed it from
everyone's gone.
Yeah, from a video game to a board game, one of the best adaptations I've seen someone do, especially with a RTS format. Kind of like you have your base and you're building it up, and buying troops and taking over territory. They did a phenomenal job, I think. The components are top-notch, kind of like what you would expect to see from something like Academy games, right? Nice storage trays for everything. Everything's nice quality, nice plastic or wood, or the miniatures that come with it are like heavy. They're not hollow, right? So it's
nice,
heavy, solid pieces. Like you feel like you're really holding something. Right?
Have you painted them all already?
No, I'm painting the terrain first, just to
make
the
easy part first, huh?
Well,
so you paid $200 for a big gray box of plastic. Is that what you did?
Well, it's got gray plastic and red plastic and green plastic and another color plastic that I can't remember. Beige, brownish.
Did you ever paint the aliens miniatures yet?
No, I've moved on.
Oh, wow. That's so yesterday.
This is why I didn't get the game, and I thought the PC game sucked. So
But the PC game was good.
I got the PC game. The reason why I got the PC game is because Dave Heath texted me the other night and says, hey, Company Heroes is free this weekend on Steam. So I downloaded it for free.
Oh, that wasn't a scam text from him?
No.
I've been meaning to text him and say, hey, someone hacked your account because it looked exactly like a scam. Hey, there's a free thing here. Click here.
Well, you know how to verify that, right? Just go on Steam yourself and look it up.
Well, I already had the game, so. Just David,
No,
you know how short,
legit.
like how short all of his texts are? Like if I ask him something and it needs to be a multi-word answer, he'll find a way to do a one-word answer. It won't answer the question, but that's what he'll do. But and before I forget to say it though, they are doing a 1.5 Kickstarter. That's what I wanted to make sure and make note of. So if you missed it on 1.1, they are going to do 1.5 here soon. You can enter your email address. You'll get notified when they're doing that. So if you missed any pieces in the first one and want to get it, or you missed the thing completely and want to get it, definitely check it out. They do have Solitaire, and I'm going to be doing a big game of that, setting up to film that soon. So if you want to play it Solitaire, you absolutely can as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
No, I'll just watch you play it, I think.
Well, I'm going to play it. But it's awesome. It's a box full of yummy. Come on, you guys can't tell me you don't love opening up a new game and you just smell the new components and just, it's great.
Oh, I do. Generally not Kickstarter, though.
And just not when it's a bunch of grey plastic.
Well, I have nothing against miniatures. I love miniatures. I really do. But I want...
China.
What's that?
I said, this smells like China.
That's true. Well, so do all the board war games too.
I know, right?
But the thing is, I do like miniatures. I think they're fun, and they can be fun depending on how good the game is. But how often do you see miniatures in games that really don't need them? And I'm not saying this about this game, but you see it in other games where you really don't need them, especially like the dudes on the map games. And they're really there for just to draw you in because everybody feels compelled to get in on a miniature Kickstarter because of the miniatures. Simon started that whole thing with Zombicide and every other game that they did after that. And that's fine. If that's what people want to do, that's great. But I'll wait to hear what you have to say about the game before I look at it any further. But
did you see
to hear how it plays.
I kind of got on to Come On or Simon, whatever you want to call them here recently.
Yeah.
That's just not a good track record for him, to have that many. I think they're taking on too much at once. They're just, it seems like they never don't have something on Kickstarter. Right?
Well, it's their business model. They're going to keep just milking it for everything they can, and people are going to keep backing it, and they know it. So,
but they can't keep up. They can't keep up.
Well, they don't care. They're taking your money.
Yeah, they're getting the money. And also, in fairness to them, too, there are issues with the global supply chain, too. So that is compounding the issues.
It shouldn't be, and I can understand the rare, one-off exception, but when you can click on multiple of their campaigns, many of which ended months ago, and you still have people, commenting later saying, I never got it, but I can go out to retail and go pick it up right now, then... That's kind of shady. You need to take care of your Kickstarter backers before any retail people get it. Now, I'm not talking about the retailers who back it like at a retail pledge. I mean, like selling it just flat out retail. It shouldn't be there before it's in someone who's a backer's hands.
So don't order it on Kickstarter and just buy it at retail.
Just get it retail. The market has to correct on that. You really have to. It comes down to the backers. They have to just say, you know what, we're not going to back you anymore. But the benefit of backing versus getting it at retail is you're getting it for a little bit more than you get at retail, but you're getting a lot more. So that's the trade-off.
Oh, sure, but only if you get it, right?
Yeah,
and if you get it early, that's the whole point. Is that I'm giving you all of my money up front, and you have it for a year, and then you promise to send me a game. But if I then turn around and find it in the store before I get my copy, man, we got a real problem. And it better be cheaper than what the retail copy is too, because that's just how it should work. Because you had my money, an interest-free loan.
You are correct on that, and I've noticed that, but it's not just with Kickstarters, though, because there are companies that we deal with that will have something as a pre-order in some way, shape, or form, and I'll order it, but then I find out I could have got it 2 weeks later and paid $20 less if I ordered it off of Miniature Market. And I'm like, why am I paying more to get it just a small bit ahead of time?
You pay more, not for necessarily for, especially with war games. I think we're willing to pay more and buy direct because we're giving the money directly to the publisher versus giving it to a middleman, and they're not getting as much money because they're selling at distribution prices. So in that regard, when it comes to war game companies, because they're so small, it's better to support them directly, which is what I think we all tend to do anyway. But,
Sure.
Well, I don't mind supporting them directly, especially if they're getting stuff manufactured here, or at least as much as they can. Cool, no problem. Support them directly. Yeah. But maybe a little more transparency as far as that's concerned. I don't know. That just it rubbed me the wrong way. We had talked about it previously. I won't hang up on it.
Well, that's a good point. John says you could all do a dedicated episode about Kickstarter. How many Kickstarters have you backed, Kev? I think it would probably be 0, right?
1.
Oh, no, I've done a few.
Oh, you've done a few?
Yeah, I've done all the Vento Nuovo games.
Oh, that's right. You did.
Yeah. And some others. I forget who. I don't know. Some. Flying Pig. I've done this. So a handful of others. I did one of the goofy the Battle of Britain plastic miniatures thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Plastic Soldier Company, PSC.
Yeah, that was
Plastic Soldier Company.
It was tragic. Yeah, it looked like airplanes on LSD. That's how bad they were.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
No. they sent me new ones like a year later or 9 months later, and I put them in the box, took the old stuff out, threw it away, and sold it. I didn't even play it.
Well, that's just sad.
What about you, Nick?
A bunch. I don't know.
How many?
You're a hoe for those things,
like
man.
40, 50.
Oh,
serious?
Is that all?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, not too many.
Tell us really.
No, seriously, it's only about that many. The latest one that I backed, I say backed because I didn't have the money to put up towards it right off the bat, was the World War II game from Compass Games. So, what's the name? The Pacific one.
Oh, the War Pacific.
Yeah, the War Pacific. I wanted to get it, so I put the $1 towards it because I didn't have the money to put it yet, and I'm gonna hopefully get that when the pledge manager releases for that. But that was the latest one that I backed.
I want to get the whole smash on that because I think that would just be really cool to have Pacific and Europe. Yeah. Now, the odds of playing both of them together are fairly small at one time.
What game is this?
The War Europe and the War Pacific from Compass.
It's one of those big strategic level type things where you game out the whole war.
What's it a reboot of?
Nothing.
It's not the War. The War Europe is a reprint.
It's called The War. Yeah. Okay.
The War Europe is a reprint and the expansion, and then there's the Pacific, which is a new one.
Yeah, the name kind of threw me off a little bit too. I kept kind of butchering it. The War and the Pacific is like the name.
I know you're good. I was thinking it was something else. That's cool. Yeah, I've seen it. I read the rules. Interesting.
Well, I like those big monster types. You know, that was one of the first things I got into wargaming. So that's just all up my alley. Yeah. When
Uh,
you get the expansions, you get all the the unique models, things like that. That's the draw of Kickstarter.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It may be that there's no honor agreement regarding price, but it should be because I'm giving you my money up front. So I expect it to be less than retail. It's like it's like doing the P500. I get a 30% discount or 25% discount or 22%, whatever it is, for P500 for making a commitment, and they don't take my credit card money until then. So I use that as my benchmark for ordering. So if I'm giving you my money now, it better be at least as good as 30% off, plus all the goodies if you want to throw goodies in, because you're working that out in advance anyway. You know exactly how much, or you should know exactly how much it costs you to make it. and then you know what's going to be in the expansions, and that's your retail price, and then I get a discount off that because I gave you the money to finance making the damn thing.
Sure.
That's it. Otherwise, no plan.
I think it's fair. I'm okay with it if, like, I pay kind of the retail price, but on top of it, I get an expansion or two, with it included for the retail price of what the base game would normally go for.
Yeah.
Something as long as I come out a little bit ahead, I'm okay with it.
There has to be a value add for paying upfront for something you're not going to see for anywhere from 6 to 18 months, so.
Yeah.
And Brian brings up how Compass has figured out how to use Kickstarter as a promo tool, which is true. And when they have a game that's going to be dropping at retail or shipping out within a month, I think it is like 3-4 weeks, they go ahead and put it on Kickstarter, so like within 3 to 6 weeks of it being on Kickstarter, it's going to go out the door, which is just another way to get them some more visibility and get some more customers in. So it's smart.
Yeah. And it's a low buy. It's always a low buy with those too. It's like $4,000 or something like that, which is awesome.
I agree with you, but I kind of hate how they are shortening it up now. Like, so many companies are kind of airing for the 2-week Kickstarter now, or the
It's the smart model. It's the smart model, though.
I get that, but for me, when it was like the 30-day one, if I didn't have the money right then, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll pick it up next pay period. I had the time to wait. And now it's shit or get off the damn pot. You got to figure it out right off the bat. And I have to go to the wife like, no, the kids' shoes are fine. We cut the toes out. It'll be cool. Don't worry. We ain't got to buy them new shoes. I got Kickstarter over here. I got to, buy.
Well,
it's
the thing about
business.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's for the business. You get to write all that off on your taxes, man.
True.
Yeah. There's some benefits. I got to try to swing her way so she'll let me keep taking away all my time. You know how it is. You got to keep the wife happy.
Brant stopping by. Hey, Brant, can't watch hockey games on tonight. Going to stop by and give the thumbs up. Thanks for doing that. But, when it comes to Kickstarter, it was a good thing, I think, at first, and then it kind of got oversaturated. And that's why a lot of people are going with the 2-week model now, or even shorter, maybe 12 days or something, because when you go with the 30-day thing, there's the way Kickstarter always works is that first 2 to 4 days, maybe 5 at most, is when you get all your activity. You get most of your backing like in the first day. I think 40 to 60% of your backing, if not fully backed in the first day. And then it starts to peter off, and then it goes dead, almost flatline for about 2 weeks. There's maybe 1 or 2 or 3 backers come in every day, which is not really a lot. Then the last 48 hours is when you get that next surge. So why draw it out for 30 days if you can go ahead and cut it down to 2 weeks and just say, hey, this is where we're going. We're going to do this in 2 weeks, especially if you can do a quick turnaround like Compass does. It's a smart way to go.
No, I agree with you, but maybe they should just have it all at the end of the month. That way half the Kickstarters, in June, half the Kickstarters in July. That way,
here's a good point.
We can spread it around. Up front.
Kickstarter is an upfront.
That one never delivered, though, did it?
Nope.
That's what he's saying. Yeah, he's had the plan was that.
How long ago was that? That was a while back, wasn't it?
7-8 years, I think.
Damn, it was that long?
I think we'd have to look it up. If anybody knows that, post it in the chat. How long ago was for the upfront?
Did they ever give a reason, or did they just go silent? And
I think they went silent.
Story.
Yeah, I think it went silent. Somebody took off with the money, and then there was a whole bunch of stuff going on with that, and it was a big mess. But that could be its own show, I think. But the main thing, aside from the Kickstarter stuff, one of the things we were going to talk about, one of the 2 discussions we were going to talk about tonight was why we wargame, why all of us wargame here on the show, and then also in the chat, you post in here also why you wargame. So that way we can just discuss that, and then that'll lead us into the next topic. But Nate, why do you wargame?
Because it takes time away from having to deal with the family. No, seriously. I told you, I got into it way back when I learned about A World at War by GMT Games, right? And I was like, oh, wow, there's this really big game. Because before that, I thought games were Monopoly and Trouble. And I just had never heard about it. Honestly, I don't think wargaming has enough presence outside of its own inner sphere, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're already involved with it, there's not enough tendrils reaching out. Now, there might be more now with like gaming conventions and things of that nature, but I never heard of it, like wargaming at all, back in the day. Think 20 years ago, 10 years ago when I was still in the military.
When you were 12?
No, I would have been, oh God, I'm getting old. 20 years ago, I would have been 19. I feel so old.
19.
But I know 20 years ago, you were like 60. All right, we're at different points.
Oh. I'm surprised you didn't just go, okay, boomer.
No, I can't hear "Okay, Boomer" without seeing that little girl in the Bernie shirt dancing around in the skirt. You remember which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But yeah, when I heard about A World at War, I was like, okay, this sounds really awesome. And it was between A World at War and Absolute Victory by Compass Games, and I ended up going with Compass Games Absolute Victory. And I was enamored when I opened it up and I saw all the little counters and all the pieces. And first, I thought it was really cool, and then as I started reading the rule book, I was like, this is a lot harder than I thought. And then as I really started reading the rule book, I was like, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought I would just sit down and get right into it. But it bit my ass when I actually got into it, and I realized that I couldn't find any videos, because I was watching Callendale and Marco, and I think they were pretty much the only ones at the time frame who covered much.
You ever heard of that guy, the big board?
He wasn't doing a whole lot then. Not that time.
Don't watch him, man. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Not on YouTube.
He had like 1 or 2 videos out there and a blog and things like that.
No one had anything covering Absolute Victory.
No, not Absolute Victory, but war games, I mean.
Yeah. So when I went to see other people playing it, no one had covered it. And I was like, okay, well, I can do that. I can film this. And down the rabbit hole I went. But like I told you before, Mo, that's what ended up introducing me to David, because I started covering Lock and Load Tactical because I was actually able to get a few of the games. And he contacted me. He's like, oh, I like your videos. Can I send you a game or two? I was like, yeah, that's fine. Here's my address. 2 boxes show up. And there's like 12 games in there. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And the wife's looking at me and she's like, I've been filming YouTube videos for 2 years. No one sent me anything. She was doing that makeup crap, where you sell the makeup online. She tried hard, bless her heart on it, but there's 10,000 women doing the same damn thing. There's only like 1 woman making any profit off of it. But other than that, I think it's a good way to learn history, right? Because think about it. By Stealth and Sea, David Thompson, right? I didn't know about the human torpedo thing, right? And I'm going to talk a lot about David Thompson because he covers all the crazy shit. But Castle Ider, whatever. Itter. I always call it Ider. I never knew about that. I never knew that Americans...
Just think bitter without the B.
Yeah. I never knew American and Germans fought on the same side. And he should do the one about the horses, too. You know which one I'm talking about?
Which one?
There was a special type of horse that was in the Middle East somewhere, and they were trying to get the horses out because they were going to get slaughtered. Like the SS was going to kill them, and there was a troop of Americans who were like cavalry type who worked with some of the locals and some German soldiers who had, kind of surrendered at that point to get the horses out. There's a novel about it. David should do a game on that. I can't remember the damn name of the story, but it's like Horses of Arabia or something to that effect. But
Lawrence of Arabia?
No. It's something along those lines, but it was, like a special breed of Arabic horses that were all going to be turned into glue if they didn't get them out of there. But yeah, you can learn about stuff like that you would never hear about otherwise.
Well, before we go to Kev, Jester's here, and he says, what's up, fellas? Hope all's well. Why do we war game? Because counterclipping is a blast in reading 60-page rule books rule. Now, remember, when you read those rule books, Jester, there's a difference between Algiers and Algeria. Anybody who's seen that show will know what I'm talking about. Kev, over to you.
Why do I war game? not why did I start wargaming. Okay, because the why did I start is probably more interesting. But why do I wargame?
Go to how you started, and then go from there.
Yeah, it's okay. We didn't have the conversation. It's about girls.
Oh.
Yeah, because you meet a lot in this hobby.
No, it's because when I was little, like 12 or 13, my mom would have me meet her at the toy store after school, and then she would sometimes drive me home. Otherwise, I would walk home. But at the toy store, there was this beautiful German girl whose name was Heidi or Helga or whatever, and the war games were closest to where she stood at the counter serving people, and I got to hang out and talk with her and smell her perfume. And so I thought I'd better buy a damn game. So I got Napoleon at Waterloo from Avalon Hill. That was one of the big catalysts for me buying a war game. But,
so you got into wargaming so you didn't look like a creeper.
Pretty much.
That's pretty much short of it. Gotcha.
Exactly.
And you were a victim of chemical warfare because of the perfume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so no, I war game because of the history. I just love. I started out because of the history, and now I think I like wargaming and playing war games because of all the innovation that's going on and the interesting way folks are capturing things and have captured things in terms of the rules and the background and all these little battles like you were talking about, Nate, that we would never know about, right? If we hadn't played a game, and that gameplay generally leads to me buying a book, or vice versa. I buy a book and then go play a game. So it all feeds my interest in history.
Yeah,
very true.
I think every wargamer's into history in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Todd brings up a great point here. Wargaming, because I learn history better when I can participate. That is perfect answer right there, Todd. He wins answer of the night right there. Because it's very true. When you're reading a book, you're not participating. You're reading about it, and you can get engrossed in it. You can get pulled into the story and enjoy it and things like that. You watch a movie, the same thing. But when you're playing a war game, you're actively taking a side, or sides if you're playing both sides, and now you are participating. And I think that's a great way of learning about history, because when you play the game, you're going to start going, wow, did that really happen? You go to your phone, or you go to the computer, or you go on the internet somehow and read about, oh, did this really happen? Is that what happened here? Wow, I didn't know that. And then you start going down that rabbit hole, not with everything, but with a lot of things. And you'll learn a lot of little bits of information, and people will they'll talk about something. There'll be a new movie coming out about some obscure battle, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's the Battle of so-and-so. And they're like, how the hell do you know that? It's like, well, I played a war game that was on at one time or something, Yeah. So it's really cool. And when it comes to why I game, it's the fun, it's the participation in history, and I like seeing how different approaches are to the same battles in a lot of ways. Like what's different that people do when it comes to same battles. What angle is this designer using versus that designer? And also when it comes to modern stuff that I'm really more into, modern more than anything else I like, is the what ifs. And anything that stays within a plausible what if is really interesting to me. Like what could happen if these nations were to duke it out right now? And that goes back to why I was talking about Next War series. I think it's really great because you find out that if there was full-on combat between major nations, it wouldn't be like something that would drag on for months and months. It would be over pretty quick, and it would be really, it would be highly attritional. So it's very sobering and it's interesting, and there's just so much you can do more with history and interacting with history by playing a war game.
Well, I'll tell you what,
I love that.
You're definitely right about that, because I mean the state of conflict now. Back in World War II, everything was unguided for the most part. You drop, hope for the best, spray and pray, all that type stuff. Now everything's laser guided. We've got MOABs, we've got computers in the missile. Pretty much nothing's gonna miss. And Lord knows what the hell they have out there now. They were talking about camouflage camis, like Predator type. You know what I'm talking about. Built-in screen so you could actually see through people. They were talking about that back when I was still in. So Lord knows what type of secret equipment they have now. If something were to actually kick off large scale, against a serious force, I think you're right. I think it'd be over real quick, or it would be a small remnant left on each side, still battling it out, maybe out of a bunker or something like Verdun.
Mm-hmm. There's a good point too. John brings up history books always end the same way, but only in games can the Japanese win the war in the Pacific. You can alter the course of history when you play a war game, and that will also be something that we'll hit on the second topic that we're going to talk about, which is playing the bad guys. And because somebody's got to play both sides. You got to play, one guy's got to play the U.S., one guy's got to play the Japanese when it comes to the Pacific War. So that's something we'll get to when we get to that. But
come on, the Japanese were ever going to win World War II. That was
you never know.
No,
you never know. There's look at how look at the devastation they put on us December 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Then the United States war machine kicked in, and that's when they went, "Uh-oh."
Yeah, but that was the worst mistake they made.
It was, but at the time, it was also a calculated risk. So,
but if the aircraft carriers had been taken out and the oil had been taken out in the depots there, then it's a year before the U.S. is back in the war. So what would have been done in that year?
Yeah.
So that's the big what if, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they had it in them for a killing blow. They did a knockout blow, but they didn't do a killing blow. Right.
So they didn't need a killing blow. They just needed a sue for peace. We'll keep this, and you stay the hell out of my backyard. Right?
Bingo. Because that's the whole thing about war is you want to not only break your opponent's ability to make war. You want to break their desire to wage war. And if you can get in there and make them hurt and say, you know what, this just isn't worth it, then they'll cut their losses and get out. Look at Vietnam. It was going nowhere. Plus, there's a whole bunch of other issues with politics and stuff. But
that's why Vietnam ended the way it did. It was politics. It had nothing to do with the conflict itself.
Well, politics and also the whole way it was draining on us and stuff. And if the whole attitude is just like what the Vietnamese did with the French, they did the same to the United States. When it comes to, you keep sending guys, we're going to keep killing them until you stop sending them. And that's the whole idea of that sort of fight is they broke the ability to make war. Or the desire to make war, not the ability, because we definitely had the capability to do it, but it was the desire to continue. So that is one of those things that you explore in war games. And like John was saying, now you can win as the Japanese, and you can do like Kev was saying, you can say, hey, we're going to hit here, and then maybe you hit more and you keep them out of the war a little bit longer. So now in that year, you got about a year, you figure, what can I scoop up and how much power can I project at that point? And will it be, it's a game, so it's a little different. You'll just say, okay, well, it's a game I've got to play, so I'm going to do something. But in the real world, you're going to push them back enough to where they're going to say, you know what, this isn't worth it. But you can still explore how far you could go and then say, wow, if this was the real world, the Japanese could have gotten their sphere of influence out further. It would have been harder to get to the mainland. But it was a hard slog as it was.
How well can you simulate that in a war game, though? Right? Because when you start talking about the political will to keep going, what can you do? Victory points?
That's political will. Empire of the Sun does that. It's got an American will to fight the war. Yep. There's lots of games that have that, and so does what is it? The Victory Games. Vietnam does the same thing with the
political will.
And what's that goofy game that was useless? No Trumpets, No Drums has that political track as well.
Yeah.
I haven't played as many of those. The Vietnam one, you're not talking about the original Hearts and Minds, are you?
No, I'm talking about it's called Vietnam, right? It's being reprinted by GMT.
Mm-hmm. Nick Carp's game.
Hex, like Hex and Counter type, or?
Like Hex and Counter type.
It's the game that you start today, and we'll see you in February, and let us know how the game's going.
Yeah, but I kind of like that,
It's a long game, so that's
long
one's
scale.
A 3-mapper. It's a 3-mapper as well now.
Well, 3 maps aren't too bad. It's about the size of 1985 Under an Iron Sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Tet Offensive scenario took 2 people 2 days to play. They played. When were they? Wednesday, Thursday. 4 days, and they got 2 turns done.
No kidding. Okay, yeah, I might have to check that one out because it sounds like something I would like.
Yep.
See, that's why we need to like arrange for you guys to move near me, right? So I don't have to move, and then we
Why don't you move your country ass down here?
No, because I like my area better. And we rent out a big hall, and then we just fill it full of tables because I can never leave up a game long enough to play it out as long as I want because I've always got something else I've got to cover.
I think we all have that same problem.
Yeah.
That's why I want to get a retirement home and have a basement so I can have 2 tables, or maybe even 3, like a small table for solo games, 1 table for the game that is going to sit up there for months, and then the other table for games I'm going to play however often for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You know, that would be optimal.
Dude,
I found these really cool. Go ahead.
You know, I've had as many as 5 tables set up at the same time in my house. 1 in the garage, 3 in the office, and then the kitchen table I had taken over as well. And I started eyeballing the island in the kitchen because it's large and flat, a lot of space. And that's when the wife kind of stepped in and said, no, we need a place to cook and eat and everything. You got to retreat.
So John is saying get him a green card and he'll take you up on it. So if you marry John, you can go ahead and there you go. There's your war game partner.
Yeah, move out
I
here.
didn't think you need a green card to move over here anymore.
I don't think so.
Where's John living at?
Philippines.
Well, I think he's in Philippines or
He's in Manila.
Manila. That's right.
You can just apply for one and just come over for like a visit, can't you? I mean, I don't want to get into like all the politics of it.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, you can just. I want to come over. Well, I mean,
I'm gonna go play war games.
I wonder if anyone's put that
one in.
You know, having gone through the green card experience, it's not quite that easy, Nate, but it's very close.
Well, yours was different. You weren't coming here to visit. You were coming to stay. So
I think he wants to come and stay with you.
Well, the wife might get jealous. I mean, the bed's big enough, but I'm a snuggler, though.
He looks kind of cute, his profile pic.
Yeah. I'd just like to wrap up a little bit.
Look at that guy.
Get you a little snuggle buddy.
Adorable.
I can only imagine what the comments are going to be when he catches up on typing. Whatever he's thinking. I don't know why you'd want to come here. I heard there's a lot of attractive Filipino women. A lot of Americans supposedly go over there to get wives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe.
That's all the U.S. Navy guys do that. I know 2 or 3 of them. They're all divorced. The Filipino women are not fun to be married to once they're married to you and they have a green card.
You know, they did that to us.
A couple guys that did that.
While we were overseas, there were a lot of Iraqi women who would change out of the usual hijab thing, the big robe they'd wear, and they were wearing T-shirts and blue jeans and Mr. Meccan, I love you. Come, visit. Come, whatever. They just wanted to like go home.
Big PX.
It's like, sorry, we can't just put you in a sea bag and take you home with us. It doesn't work that way. But they really wanted to like snag an American. It was kind of funny though, like no bullshit. When we got there, there were a lot of, because this was 10, 12 years after the first Iraq war. There were some 12-ish looking year old kids who were kind of lighter skinned. Made you wonder what was going on during the first one. I mean, it happens with every conflict. It wasn't like it was just us.
So they're saying John can be Nate's 90-day fiance.
My wife loves that show. It's horrible.
Someone had to say it. I wasn't gonna.
Yeah, and you know what? The funny thing is the first time you go into a bar over there in Asia. I've been to the Philippines and Japan. And that's in Korea. That's the way they talk. It's just the phrase. It's not just from a movie. So,
what? Hey, funny. Soldier man.
No shit. I love you. Buy me drinky. That's their first thing. And they say I love you long time. They give the whole. They have their broken down American phrases that they just slap at you as you come in the door. Damn. No shit. I love you. Buy me drinky. That's the first thing.
I love you.
And they're just trying to get you, because that's their job, is to get you to keep dumping money into the house, buying drinks for them. And they'll sit there and drink their Coca-Colas, which they're, saying that it's a Coke and a rum and Coke or whatever. And it's not, it's just Coke. And they're, getting you to pay $5 or $10 a drink or whatever for their companionship, and some guys are foolish enough to do it because they're lonely and they're overseas, and it's like, hey, if you want to do that, go for it, dude, but I'd rather spend that money on liquor for me.
Oh, come on, that's not really much different than, America. You go to any college bar, you're going to have, a bunch of girls, hey, you want to buy me a drink? No, I'm not going home with you. Not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. That's why I spend my money on war games.
I'm not sure I've ever had a girl walk up to me and say, hey, do you want to buy me a drink? But, I'd be more than happy to have that experience.
When I was in college, it was all the time. Buddies would go out and some cute girl come up, hey, you want to buy me a drink? Last I checked, we weren't dating and we're not going to start dating. Like, she'd be a 10, a knockout, coming up to me, and I'm like, look, I know you don't want this ugly fucker, so no, I'm not buying you a drink.
So John is saying Mo's dating site. I'm going to have a war game site. It's going to be a war game matchup site. They have eHarmony. We're going to have Hex Harmony. So that's the way to go, I think. So you were going to say something before, Kev.
I have no idea.
You lost your train of thought.
We got a little distracted.
Nate kept going, but you were talking something about your discussion with war games, why you war game.
Oh, were we still on that topic?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you're going to keep going. It looked like you had another. It looked like you had another point to make. That's why I was like, "Oh, go ahead." I was going to try to bring you back on track.
No, you're a great host, Mo. You just keep up. You keep doing this. This is great. I'm having a great time.
I will say, in good news though, things are slacking off now in my area because I'd mentioned to you guys about the little convention I went to, the small one, recently. War game convention. It was nice to actually be out there seeing war games played in person, actually talk to people, and be face to face when gaming was going on instead of everything virtual. So it's nice that it's actually slacking up in my area. And if any of the guys from that convention are watching, I will have the footage up soon. I'm sorry, I've been swamped and I have many hours of footage to go through, but they were doing a lot of cool stuff. Actually, some stuff I think we've talked about before. The Carnage and Glory. You guys remember that one? Mm-hmm. Carnage and Glory System 2, the one that uses the computer.
Yeah.
I had never seen that actually used in action, and it's phenomenal. It's the coolest wargaming system I've ever seen. It's a skirmish game, miniatures going after each other depending on what time frame you are, all the way Napoleon to Vietnam, and the computer's running the whole thing for them, right? So the computer keeps track of the fatigue level and the damage and how many troops they've lost and all that good stuff, so they could focus on the gaming, and all they had to do is say, hey, I'm moving this unit into this formation, so it'll take whatever fatigue or damage or reaction shot, and it takes care of all of that. So I'm going to show that in the footage. I got an interview with the guy who's running the campaign. Excellent miniatures, cool people playing it, and there were some other games going on as well, but the Carnage and Glory was excellent to actually see that played in person, because I've never got to see that before.
Cool. And Hethel's got a good one here. He says, then you enter her place, and it's full of Mordheim and Necromunda minis and scenery than you ever imagined. When you meet the girl at the bar, and you're like, oh, yeah, you don't want me to buy you a drink, and then you go to her place, you're like, holy crap, you got more war game stuff than I do.
Wouldn't be Mordheim. That's crap's all out of print now. They still
have
That's why it would be great. She has all the out of print stuff.
All the Necromunda. GW is catching a lot of hell right now because of a lot of the stuff they're doing. The way they're.
When do they never catch hell? They're always catching hell. But now the second topic we're going to talk about was playing the bad guys in a game. And just like before, when John brought up the Japanese winning World War II, okay, now they're the bad guys from the U.S. perspective, from Japanese perspective, we're the bad guys. And does anybody have a problem in the chat or in this room here in the show playing any sides in a game or any hesitation for playing a side in a game, and why? That's the topic. Do you have any problems playing the bad guy, quote unquote bad guy? Kev, you go first.
Go ahead, Nate.
What's that?
No, I was just saying, go ahead, Nate. And Nate said no. So
okay, so Nate wants to go first. Okay, I was going to let Kev go first.
I'll say this. No, Yeah, someone's got to play the bad guy in the game, and we've seen a lot of the articles popping out recently trying to get all political with it, and that's why I kind of worry about wargaming, because they're trying to jam crap into it that's not there, and I don't think you see it towards the Japanese, right? Because it doesn't work with the agenda, right? So the Japanese aren't really bad guys in anyone's eyes. You know, they were the bad guys in World War II, but you still don't hear about them in today's world, right? But when you get into the Germans, and then you get into the Luftwaffe, damn, I forget what they called their army. I'm having a brain fart. Help me out here.
Yes, you're talking
Wehrmacht?
about the
The
SS forces or
Wehrmacht?
Yeah, the Wehrmacht.
the Wehrmacht?
Yeah, sorry, I brain farted. But you get into the Wehrmacht and the SS and all that. Even today, they're still thought of as the most evil people, even though when it comes to the Wehrmacht, those were just general troops, and then the SS ones, yes, they were evil and kind of mind screwed. But people are trying to correlate that now into, well, if you play as those, then you're idolizing it, or you're agreeing with their ideology. It's like, no, no. If I play a video game and the video game is set modern and it's insurgents versus Marines, if I just happen to be on the insurgent side in the video game, I don't agree with them. It doesn't. Sure as hell, I'm not on their side. But if you're playing any competitive game, you've got to have the opposing force. You've got to have someone playing as the opposing force. And I think a lot of people now are just attacking something they don't know. They just look
It's
at
just
it.
a posture, isn't it?
Yeah. They look at it and
Yeah.
they see a German cross and they try to attack it. Think of how many games now cannot have the Confederate flag on the Confederate troops, right? Even though that was their flag. It has nothing to do with what they believe in or what they were fighting for or any of that crap. The Confederates weren't fighting for slavery anyway, like the troops. Now, the political side was different, but the troops were believing their own thing. The troops don't always believe what the leaders believe. But that's what they used, right? So you shouldn't not be able to have what was historically there as part of it. You shouldn't not be able to play the historical bad guys in it because people want to try to jam modern day politics into a place that it doesn't belong. You have to put yourself into those shoes to understand the time frame. Right? Look at it from a different point of view. It's how you learn history, and it's also how you don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Learning from them, understanding what they were thinking, understanding how people allowed a lot of the things that happened to happen. You know, it wasn't just an instant. There were gas chambers and everything happening. Things progressed over time. It was years before, you know, bad guys came to power, and then a lot of bad things started to happen, but a lot of nuance happened in there. But
Yeah.
I think people are trying to jam that modern day politics into it. Well, you can't play this game. Or I see the articles, and I'm sorry I'm ranting, but the articles are talking about people who are obsessed with Germans because they like the German tanks, right? A lot of people like the German tanks, the Tiger, the Panzer 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them, the Jagdpanzer, King Tiger, because they're cool tanks, right? It's just a cool tank. It's
I think the
awesome.
T-34 and the Joseph Stalin, 2 is cool also, and they were Allied side, but they were evil as hell too because they're communist. The Nazis and the communists are equally as evil, so I can still like their gear when it comes to appreciating the form of it and then also playing it in game. But as far as agreeing with their ideology or anything like that, hell no. But Kev, your turn.
So it's interesting what you're saying, Nate, because it seems to me like the Nazi is an easy term, right? It's an easy term to throw around, and it's an easy term to conflate with one side or another in modern day politics. Both sides seem to be using that word, but it doesn't really work. And we all know, as World War II enthusiasts, we all know what real Nazis were. And when we look at the Pacific Theater, if I were to call you, oh, you're an imperialist Japanese person, well, it doesn't really have quite the same ring to it, does it? Right? No. So even though the Japanese, if you go listen to Dan Carlin's first 3 episodes on his podcast about the Pacific Theater. It's brutal, and I've read, like everyone else has, all the horrors about Nanking and the way they treated prisoners and all the rest of it. Just as evil, just as despicable, and just true total war when it came to reclaiming of the islands. There was no quarter.
Yeah.
There were no prisoners taken, or very, very few by either side. So it was brutal as all hell. Now, will I play the Japanese? Yes. Will I play any other side? Sure. It doesn't bother me because it's a game. I will, however, I do, however, sometimes get queasy when it's down at that kind of platoon squad level, when, particularly playing some of the Pacific Theater stuff, where you're doing some sort of island landing or some sort of engagement, and it's platoons getting wiped out one after the other. At some point, I'm going to probably say, you know what, my guys are really getting chewed up. I need to reset. I don't want to play this anymore because it's just too brutal, right? Yeah, because you can sort of have a little bit of transferal going on, but that doesn't mean I won't play either side. I'm the guy that's killing the Americans, right? And we're cleaning the house with them. But I don't see why anyone who is A, an adult, B, rational, and C, it just, whether you're a male or female, but if you can just have a straight head on your shoulders and not be a dumbass about it, why you would have an issue playing one side or the other, unless you had some sort of emotional trauma. And I find it interesting, Nate, that you said that you would play the jihadists, right? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had the shit blown out of you by the bad guys serving the United States military. And for you to be able to say that, it means, you have just a straightforward attitude to this, right? It's just a game, and we're rolling dice, and we're having some fun, and we're learning, and we're doing stuff, and we're not doing it to fantasize about being head Goebbels or whatever the hell, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you what, for me, I like what you mentioned with personal experience. I find that more often than not, I get too distracted to play the game. Someone brought it up. They had asked me, actually when I was on Jester's show, if I had a problem with them with the game coming out 6 days in Fallujah. No, I don't care if they put out the game. As long as it's in good taste, I probably wouldn't play it just because I don't want to relive it. But
right.
I don't think there's a problem with anyone else playing it. But I did, what's the game? Phantom
Fury?
Phantom Fury.
Phantom Fury.
I tried to record that, and I found more often than not that I ended up getting distracted, and I ended up just telling military stories instead of playing the game. And I never finished it just because I couldn't stay focused on what I was doing. So it wasn't that I didn't want to, play the game, or I was having like a bad time with it, or even it was a bad game. I just couldn't stay focused. I think you would have the same problem if you took a GI and gave him a war game where he was playing Battle of the Ardennes. If he was in the Third Army or something like that.
So were you having a hard time concentrating on the game because of you were remembering things, or it was remembering things that were traumatic, or remembering things in a way like for a little bit of levity? This one time at band camp, like that sort of thing. So, I mean, which one was it?
It's a little both.
A combination?
It was actually a little both because, have you seen the map for the game?
Yeah.
Like, it's overhead of the city. Well, that looked real similar to what I used with our Blue Force tracker, right, in the computer. So I had seen that, like, in the real world version, a lot different than the board game, but similar layout. And that's exactly where I was. I was in Fallujah. And, got blown up in Fallujah. It was right outside MSR, Michigan. What we called MSR. It was one of the main service routes. But I just found that when I would, like, move the troops and then a bad guy would spawn, I'm thinking about it like, okay, well, what would we have done in this situation? Then I started thinking about, like, what happened in those situations. And I was like, well, this one time at band camp, Haji popped up and we shot at him.
Yeah, but so here's the thing, though. So I know guys who were, other than yourself, that were there that won't play those games because it's too raw for them. And I totally respect that. That's different, I think, than being, putting your flag out and going, oh, well, I'm not playing this side because it's evil and it's just like blah, blah, blah. Today, modern times, you're making a political statement or you're just trying to be some sort of virtue signaling something. I don't know what you're trying to be, but I respect the fact that, guys like Nate are choosing not to play because of circumstances that occur to them. That's completely different, I think, than, say, someone not wanting to play some sort of, namby-pamby game because it has guys in black uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't affect. I'm not going to take someone else's ability to play because I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that old saying of my rights end where yours begin. I think a lot of people don't really get that nowadays. Play whatever game you want, play whatever side you want. That's fine. Now if the dude is dressed up and he's got a little swastika on his arm, wearing a gray uniform,
that's totally different.
Dude might be a psycho.
Unless he is literally and because they do have these, unless he is literally on the way to or coming from a historical reenactment event for the weekend or something. And if he is, he should think twice about how he goes out in public outside of his event that he's at. That's one of those things where you're going to the event, you dress there, and then you do your thing, and then you take the uniform off, and then you go home. It's why would you do that? That's just not smart. But now there's a difference. There have been people like that in the past. I've never met one. I've never run into any of them. When it comes to like the Nazi sympathizers that are always, bandying about, or the apologists or whatever. And Nazi now
apologist.
I call it,
that's the word.
The apologist. Yeah. Now I call this whole thing now the Nazi term gets labeled to everything or anybody that people don't like. And I just call it Godwin's Law 2.0 because Godwin's Law before was how long can an internet argument go until someone was called Hitler? Now, how long can an internet argument go until someone calls someone a Nazi, which is stupid. It's like, but when it comes to war games, there's all different sides. And I have no problems playing any side in any war game because the way I look at it is, number one, it's a game. Number two, I'm getting to see the war from their perspective, from a strategic and tactical perspective and operational. So I'm getting to see what their challenges were and looking at it open-mindedly and seeing, oh, wow, this is why the U.S. were able to steamroll them here, or this is why the Germans were able to steamroll through the Soviets or through Americans here or there, whatever. And then you can get a better appreciation of history because, like we were saying before, participating in it, you learn more. So when it comes to limiting, what side you'll play for, you're limiting your perspective. You're not broadening your scope and seeing the whole, big picture. But I'm fine with that. If people, don't want to take a side, I'll take any side and I don't care. And I can even throw in really bad accents when I'm playing whatever nationality because I'll just go all in on it and have fun.
The tank noises down, dog.
What's that?
I've got the tank noises down.
Throwing that bad Texan accent.
Oh yeah. No, I think you brought up an interesting point about. Oh damn it! Now I've forgotten. Never mind.
Hey, welcome to my world for Schifferbrain. Sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, really, doesn't it?
No, I'll tell you. I actually had
That's
some.
Good.
Hold on, let me say this before I forget it. I actually had someone who made the point to me one time, like if they made a game about the Holocaust where you had to manage like a Euro about a concentration camp, would you think that that's appropriate? Do you think that's okay to make one? And I told him, yeah, I think that's fine to make one because that could be a good historical lesson for someone if they had to game that out and then think back on it like someone in real life at some point made these decisions in real life. They weren't just moving counters around on a board, moving pieces. They actually did this in real life. That's horrible. How could they have made that level of a decision? And I kind of explain my rationale. It's not because I want them to repeat what they did, but teaching people about that, especially if someone games out like, okay, well, you have X amount of bodies you have to dispose of, and you have this amount of time to do it, and blah, blah, blah. I know it sounds really gaudy when you lay it out like that, but if someone who doesn't understand it had to game it out and then understand the amount of thought process and logistics that actually went into it, they can understand why that ideology was evil and why it doesn't need to be repeated.
But one thing on that is you would have to build in a hook in the game to make sure that it did not stay too abstract for the player, because then otherwise it becomes a math problem. And you have to instead make sure they understand you're talking about human lives that are just being butchered for no reason other than an ideology.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you do that in the game.
Exactly. That's not a game I would play, right?
No.
It's not
I
a
don't
game
see a
I'm
need
interested
for it.
in playing.
Yeah.
I could certainly see, I think there's some other comments in here talking about modeling specific cruelties, et cetera, et cetera. And I think those are not necessary with the sort of games that we're playing.
No, not for fun. What I would envision it more
even if it's a learning, exercise,
like
I don't
college
know
course.
that you need it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
When you're just, because I took a lot of these courses in college, right? I took a course specifically on the Nazis in World War II when I was in college, and I think something like that could be a beneficial learning tool for a student to kind of get their hands on and like get a better grasp, because it's one thing to have a professor standing in front of you going blah 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 blah, this all happened. That can kind of wash over your head, but if you actually have to get your hands dirty in a way, if you get my point, it can change your perspective and make it a little more real for the person, right?
Right. Well, I think particularly today, given the fact that there are so few folks that are fully aware of what they're saying and what the true meaning of some of the words are that they're using, that the games like you're talking about might help them understand a little bit about the distinctions between calling someone, a Nazi or a communist and not really knowing what that means. It's good for them to play some sort of game. Imagine having a game starting out being Stalin, right? How do I min-max my,
purge
situation with my purges? Right? That just doesn't sound interesting to me. But here's what has changed for me over time, getting back to war games, is that the more Eastern Front games I play, when I sit down and I look at the board, I look at the expanse of the board, I look at the forces the Germans start with and the forces the Russians start with, and particularly if there's some of these, there's a lot more later war games coming out now, so 43 onwards type of thing. I sat down with that little Kursk 43 game and looked at it, I was like, what
were the Germans thinking?
What, what were they thinking? And B, why wouldn't they have just pulled out? Because there was little point in that exercise other than the futility of the opportunity to do marginally better than what the Germans did, if you could, which was faint praise. And it just wasn't that fun, right? Now, what was fun was the mechanics of the game. I like the mechanics. I like the artwork. I like the rule book and all the rest of it. So I played it and enjoyed it, but it didn't enrich my understanding of what was going on. So I don't know.
There's no real winner.
I didn't want to.
It didn't give me an opportunity to get any what ifing in really either, right?
I didn't want to put this up when you were talking because it was going to cover most of your face here, but
that's cool.
Not a
Kilroy
problem.
brings up a good point here. He says, I prefer to play historically losing side. If I win, I'm a military genius. If I lose, well, I was supposed to. So I play the bad guys quite a bit, as the winners write the history most times. So that's actually a good point. For Kilroy, he's figuring, you know what? I'm not going to worry about winning. I'm going to just take the losing side anyway. So I can just say, hey, I'm expected to lose, but if I win, I'm super smart. So that's a good way of doing it. I like that.
Look how clever I am.
That is a really good point, though. Like, think of how much of history is distorted or twisted because whatever side won, and they depicted themselves whatever way they wanted because they were writing the history books, right?
Oh,
so
sure.
How much out there didn't happen the way we think it did because the wrong people wrote the history books? Just an interesting.
Who's the baddie? Who's the baddie, Pompey or Caesar?
Right, exactly, right.
I don't know enough history that far back. And which Caesar?
Crossing the Rubicon.
The original Julius Caesar.
I'm going to go with
For
Just catching up on these comments that people were making.
Second Civil War, right?
John says, don't have a problem with it, would do it fine, but I will say I have more fun on the side I deem as good or moral since I like to really get immersed, and that immersion is harder as the bad guys.
I agree with that. Like that Napoleon game I covered here recently. I picked I always kind of internally pick a side that I'm kind of leaning towards. I try to be unbiased when I'm making my decisions, but I always have one side I kind of want to win. And I was like, yeah, I want the British faction to win because the other side is French. And the French, no, French bad.
Except the French resistance.
That's actually an interesting point that Hethwell brings up, right? Because
Mhm.
the Punic Wars, I don't know that necessarily the Carthaginians were the bad guys, right? So who broke the treaties? who instilled the draconian friggin' conditions on the Carthaginians? So you could argue that the Romans were the bad guys.
So are you a Carthaginian apologist?
I am. I'm a Carthaginian apologist.
Well, I mean, they were fighting for their own land, though, right?
Right, they were. Well, they kept it real. They used mercs. Gotta love that.
There you go. Well, hey, we're doing the same thing now.
Yeah.
Well, you got
all these PMCs.
You got to think, though. A lot of places when they were invaded, they were colonized. I mean, that even happened in the Americas, right? It was my own people that were being colonized. But what would America look like if Europe hadn't come in and colonized it and kind of taken over? Would it even be a country, or would it be a bunch of small factions, kind of like Europe is?
Now, Brian brings up freedom, which I had mentioned, I think, once before in one of our conversations. That's the Underground Railroad. Now, that is a game where you are playing the Underground Railroad and you have to keep the slaves away from the slave catchers. And it is a cooperative game. So you can play it solitaire, you can play with other people. It's also a great educational tool. And that goes back to your point earlier about the concentration camps and, the way they were just murdering these people. If you could come up with a game, and I don't think it would be much of a market for it, to be honest with you, because who wants to play a game about that? But if you could somehow put that in a compelling way, like Freedom is done, it's an educational tool right there. Now, Freedom's different because now you're trying to get them the freedom, not dealing with, executions.
You're
of people
still playing as the good guys. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Like, can you survive until the Allies liberate you, or something like that?
Yeah.
That would, right.
Yeah, something like that would be better. Or, what's next? Or can you game the killing fields, with Pol Pot?
Right.
And is there a reason for that? No, I think that's where the war games are better. And I think being able to explore all aspects of them by playing good guys and bad guys are great. Otherwise, if you want to take out good guys and bad guys and make it bland, then you're just red versus blue at that point.
Right.
And that was the original game. Tactics and Tactics 2 were red versus blue. So maybe we need to make all the games like that. But then you take out the historical aspect of the games, and then people don't learn. And like you said before, Nate, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it. So that's why we want to learn history.
That's why none of it should be off limits. There shouldn't be, no matter how bad, and some of it is very bad, but no matter how bad, no topic should be off limits, because when it's off limits, it's forgotten, right? It all has to be remembered. It doesn't matter how it's remembered. I still think back to that, and not trying to get too political, but that statue that was torn down last year before, and it was a slave, and it was actually built, paid for by slaves who had been liberated by Lincoln, and it was a slave who was kind of like reaching up and Lincoln was helping him up, but they tore it down, and it's like, slaves put this up, why are you tearing it down? That's a piece of history you don't want to forget.
They're ignorant to the history, and that's the sad part.
It's not about the history. It's about being able to analyze and tear down and make a political point. It's all just point scoring, and I think we've used the word virtual signaling tonight. It's more of that anyway.
Yeah. Now, Stigler says here, my issue is not with education. It's about making a game on certain subjects. I agree. There are some subjects there's really no need to have a game on, like the Holocaust. I don't see a benefit to having a game about that. And then Fango says Blitzkrieg, red versus blue.
Yeah, baby. Love that game. That was one of my second or third games, I think. I played the hell out of that thing.
John says, okay, I'll bring up Raccoon Tycoon. Should we play a game where animals run railroads?
Yes. Now, I think once we start putting things as off limits, then it's a slope that never ends. Because something somewhere offends someone. It doesn't matter what it is. So eventually everything will be blocked.
That's true, but at the same time, there are just some games I think that most people, most everyone would agree with, that there's really no benefit to having a game like on the Holocaust, for example. Is there a benefit to that? No. Let's move on.
Sure,
If
I
you're going to
guess.
do a game, do it similar to
Right.
like Freedom.
I can see
you know?
I can see Nate's point though. Nate's, where do we draw the line on all those
Sure.
sorts of things? And I think that's fine, but let the marketplace decide that, because the marketplace is going to say, hey, you know what, your game idea really sucks, I'm not going to buy it, versus being shouted down, right?
Yeah.
Mob outrage.
And have people cowed into towing the line, whatever the line is, whether it's left, right, or middle.
See,
Yeah.
that's what really bothered me with that game that was going to be set in Africa. And it was the colonialism of Africa, and it got canceled. And I'm like, okay, so why is a game about colonizing parts of Africa not okay, but a game colonizing, my ancestors, that's okay? Like, why is one okay and one's not? They're all people. They're all getting colonized.
I think it was more feelings were hurt, right? There were more feelings hurt, and it was insensitively handled, according to certain groups on Facebook, that it wasn't managed well and presented well, and some of the cards were pretty kind of goofy. The guy really had thought it through, so
But it was prototype, right?
What's that?
It was prototype, right? Like it wasn't finished.
Oh, sure, but the whole point was that he didn't handle the circumstances well, but he sure as hell got more than he bargained for, I think, with that whole exercise. So disappointing.
I worry with that tomorrow it'll be something else, and someone's like, well, we shouldn't have games with Germans because Germans were the bad guys, so, well, you can't have any more World War II games. Right, because someone's going to shout them down, and then, well, we can't have any Civil War games because the Confederates were the bad guys, so those are going to get shouted down, and well, then we're left with what you were saying earlier. It's red versus blue, and there's
I can see the concern there, but I don't see that necessarily happening, because if anybody tried to start that, there would be a pretty loud uproar from people that are generally quiet and stuff. They'd be like, get your hands off the games, get your hands off history. Like it or not, it happened. And if you want to not repeat the same mistakes, then learn from it. Stop trying to revise history and make it fit your narrative, because that's not the way it is. That's not the way it happened. So learn from it, move on. That's the proper way to do it.
Yeah, but everything you said could be applied to that game that was set in Africa.
Good, but I don't know enough of the game, and I don't think anybody really does, because there was so little that was released about that game other than the name, Scramble for Africa. And then after that, it was, I think, a couple prototype images and a rough thumbnail sketch, and that was it. So
to be fair,
it ended up being blogger fodder, right? There was more written about that game than probably any other pseudo Euro game that was never published in the history of the world. So,
Yeah, to be fair, you're right. I don't know enough about it to really judge one way or the other, besides the basic gist and the fact that it was canceled, because it was canceled. I just don't want to see that. Like that. It keep going on, and this piece gets taken away, that piece gets taken away, that piece gets taken away.
There's more war gamers and gamers. We're talking about we're talking about having this more inclusive group, right? This group of, other than the three of us, right? The middle-aged white guys. And I'm still gonna hold on to the middle age. So screw you.
I was gonna say, Nate. You're at the upper end of that.
Yeah, they're so funny. They're so funny. So okay, the old guy, and you two little pumpkins. We're supposed to be more inclusive, right? Yet here we are being told that we can't have A, B, or C in our pantheon of game designs. We're not allowed to play this sort of game that covers this, and it's not allowed to have this type of art or that type of art. It's really a little disingenuous. If you want to, I think if push came to shove on that slippery slope, I think the people that are, common sense, who can handle having a feeling bruised or battered for a moment will stand up and say, hey, look, piss off, go back to your own little inclusive group, and you don't play what you don't want to play, but we're going to go play these games. And when the publishers stop making the games, then I'll stop buying games from them, right? You know, there are some publishers that are more Euro than they are Hex and Counter now.
Yeah, very true. And Stigler says there's more nuance to the statue issue, too deep to go into here, so that's something to revisit at a later time. And to change
I'd love to
things.
hear more about that, Stigler. Maybe we can chat on Messenger or in a chat between the four of us.
Yeah, you can let me know in an email. It's in all my videos.
And to change the whole focus on that statue thing, Chestnut has more concerns, more deeper concerns. He's afraid that statues are going to get hit by lightning and then come to life and try to kill him.
Important safety tip.
Chestnut's been smoking a little pot.
I want to get some of that action.
A lot of pot. Well, you could if you move Colorado.
John said he remembers Mark Herman took a lot of heat for Gulf Strike because people were saying he was profiting off the Gulf War, even though the game was designed prior to the Gulf War.
Geez. Yeah, there you go. Right. So it never ends. Now it's just more. I think now they have a platform, right? They've got Facebook and Twitter, and so all these wonderful people who are so concerned about everything now have a platform to make their little voices a little louder.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make a game about getting blown up. I'm gonna profit off my own shit. That's what I'm gonna do.
There you go. I will buy that game just to support you.
All it is you move the Humvee few hexes along, and then you roll. If you roll 1 through a 6 on a D6, you get blown up. There's the game, and you win. Game over.
Game over.
No, I do have an idea for a war game, but I'll tell you guys about that off camera.
Nice.
Because I am actually drawing a little something up. But I don't want these people stealing my things.
Oh,
running off to a publisher with it.
Everyone's gonna people tune into Whiskey Charlie just to hear our war game design thoughts.
Well,
and then they're going to take it and run with it.
They can have the thoughts, but they can't have this thought.
There you go.
Although,
here's the question: did you write it down?
Yes.
Because if you have the thought, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Unless you
trust me, I wrote it down because I'm a dumb. No, I hate it, man. My memory's been getting worse. They tweaked with my seizure meds, and like I've been in a fog ever since. Like the memory's just getting worse. I'm afraid I'm gonna end up like my grandfather. He died from Alzheimer's, or excuse me, my grandmother died from Alzheimer's. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm losing my crap. But as long as I can remember a war game and my kids' names, I'm good.
Well, that's a good thing about war games. You know, it exercises your brain.
Well, on the bright side, every game will eventually be new again, even if I played them all before.
That's true. The older I get, you know, once you get in your 50s, you start having, little selective CRS, you do forget stuff, which before I used to get frustrated about, but now when I'm playing solitaire war games, I'm like, this is awesome. Because I'm like, okay, what cards did that other guy have, or what units are over there, and what was he? What was I going to do on the other side? Oh well, screw it. Here, I'm going to do this, and then go over there and go. What did that other side do?
It's kind of like
it's good
playing Ambush. You remember you got the little booklet. You can play that once a year, and it's like a new game all over again each time because you can't remember what the hell was there.
That is awesome.
Exactly.
That is awesome.
Well,
I haven't struck that yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
What's the Leatherneck?
I haven't struck that yet, but I'm looking forward.
Really, Leatherneck is the one I want.
I've got that. I've got the expansion for it. New and Shrink, never been opened.
Wow.
Yes, I am holding on to that. Like, I don't want to open it because it's still in Shrink and just kind of look at it. But I've got that's the expansion. But I got the base game. I've actually got out and played. Great game. I mean, it's Marine version of Ambush, so it's a good game.
Sure. Yeah, that's the one I want. I nothing against Ambush, but if I had my choice, Leatherneck would be the one I'd obviously go for. Right. But the odds of ever finding it, you're going to have to get it either secondhand or, maybe somebody just happens to be selling it at a garage sale. You get it for $5 or something, but no one's going to be reprinting it. So at least not for now. So we're going to have to just go with the secondhand.
It's you don't have them, Mo?
No, I don't.
$70.
Definitely
eBay.
There you go. Oh, I just got your thing that you've got your solo tutorial for the Company of Heroes just went up, huh?
No, the game? I put that up days ago.
Oh, I just got the alert on my phone that
You just got
your
the
thing. Yeah,
Oh, it
just
must
got
be
it.
Really?
yeah.
Did you schedule it for tonight?
No. Was it CSW live or
No, it was
YouTube?
that was from YouTube.
No, I put that video up like 4 or 5 days ago. I noticed on their website they had a lot of people asking tips about how to play the game Solitaire, so I focused on like just the solitaire aspects of the game, and then I'm going to do an actual playthrough of it here in a few days. Well, it'll take me a little while to film it because I'm going to do a big one.
Are we supposed to be subscribed to your channel or something?
No. Most people aren't. I think that's because
That's not true. Sennheiser is, so.
Yes, and I'm subscribing now, baby.
They're paying attention. Well, they'll like the update video at least. I'm not saying bad things about them. And I had one of my kids in my lap, so it kind of looks sweeter and kind of engineers the sympathy. Like, oh, look, it's just a little daddy with his little baby girl, and this big mean company wants to not take care of him with his warranty. Bunch of assholes.
You can really milk it. You can really milk it, and you say this disabled Marine veteran.
I thought about
his children
getting up and gimping around with a cane a little bit, but I thought that might be pushing it.
Yeah, that would be tacky, but it's good point. But John says get Compass to reprint Ambush and all of its expansions, Designer Signature Edition.
Compass doesn't own the rights to that, do they?
Still around. No, I'm not sure who has the rights.
Yet.
Is it Hasbro? Does Hasbro still own it, or?
I have no idea who owns it. I mean, it's not like someone couldn't make a game in a similar vein. I've already said that I think Ambush should be remade, but made with an app. That way the app can... I know Kev wouldn't play it, but the rest of us who are in the modern world would play it, and it could be fully randomized.
Oh. Yeah,
with an app?
Okay, so hang on a second. So just hang on here big time. So I love apps if they're useful and they're updated and they're managed well.
I think something like that could be done.
But for Ambush, there's a lot of writing. Those paragraphs, there's a huge amount of work that has to go into actually writing those things. So it can't really be, they can't be as randomized as you think. It's pretty complicated. Those apps for that type of thing would require a story writer and a really smart person to do the narrative trees and all that sort of stuff, because it's got to make sense, right? You've got to be able to flow through the mission.
I mean, to an extent, it doesn't have to be perfect, but say you had 100 different events, and then depending on what terrain you're moving into, or it'd have to be a little more than 100, but X amount of events could be available for this type of terrain or this type of terrain, depending on which one you're moving into. If you're moving into jungle, more likely to find a sniper, like up in a tree, something like that. Get the gist. So that one is increased in the probability. But yeah, you'd have to have someone write out the basic one, but they did that with the first game.
Look, I'm right.
Tom says he's right.
Okay.
Hey, do it, Tom. The man. Tom's the man.
Andy hates to say that.
I say,
and then he doesn't use it.
I'll put it this way, and this is, someone can steal this. How about instead of a booklet, a deck of cards, and you draw off the cards and it gives you random events. Some type of randomizer. That was already said by
Fango. Fango already said that, and you can keep updating it. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. See,
so now you're stealing other people's ideas.
Me and Fango on the right page here. Fango's smart man, knows what he's talking about.
There you go.
That's what you need. You need random events. You need some type of randomizer that increases the game to be solitaire friendly, and Ambush is a solitaire game, and it gives it replayability. Without that, you're stuck with hoping you get Alzheimer's so you can play it again.
Yeah, but I think the events too interwoven to be allowed. It's not like Ranger. Ranger has
generic events.
Has generic events, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas Ambush, the events are interwoven through the theme of the story, and that's why they've got that little wheel and all that bullshit. And I mean, I've only goofed around with it; I haven't played it, but they're too tightly interwoven.
Yeah, it creates a whole narrative and it branches off each other,
which is why they didn't do another version, right? They didn't do any more because they're like, this is freaking hard.
Yeah. John said he'd never do another one again because it was so difficult. And I can see why, because like you said, it's all interwoven, it's all connected together. When you have branches upon branches upon branches, it's difficult to get all that together. Now, if you could do that, another way instead of doing cards, if you think from a business standpoint, is maybe create an app that can randomly can do all that, can run the AI to create that tie-in, and you publish the game, a regular board game, and then you run through the AI again to create another story. Then you print that out as a book and you sell it as an expansion a year later or 2 years later, whatever. And you keep doing that every year or two. People have expansions that are built through AI logic, obviously checked by the designer and stuff like that. But you use the power of computers to help you and try to cut down on some of that extra work, but keep that narrative going in a different way. You punch in some different, variables and you come out with a different story.
Hold on, what's it?
So that's a suggestion to anyone out there who is motivated enough to do it. Tom, there you go. If you want to do a game, you can do that.
Yeah. Well, I think Gary Crocker was saying that, both Butterfield and Lee Smith are both still making games. So maybe someone should talk to them about it. I'm sure it's on that list. It's got to be, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that he's tired of being asked that question.
Which question is that?
About Ambush. When are you going to do another one?
Well, there's obviously a demand for the game. I mean, hell, it still sells on eBay. You can see it go upwards of $200. But the problem is why is someone going to pay $200 for a single experience, right? If you've got a half decent memory, you play it once, you pretty well know the game. So having some type of randomizing factor can really increase the resale value, or the sale value rather, on a new version of it. There is a demand. Right, the fact that that game sells for a high price, that it's still talked about to today, that it goes for so much. I mean, that shows that people like the system. They want to see more of it. It just needs to be modernized a little bit.
So Gary says an app would allow the story to potentially branch off in many more directions than it was restricted to in the original game analog style. And that's where I was saying, create the app, punch out a book from it, and sell it that way. So you're using both. You're using the app to generate the game. And then Tom's saying that we need to send Bitcoin to the address in the comments of the source code. And then he says, I made no sense. That's because you're not understanding.
Yeah, Tom's a little slow like that, so don't worry about that. Don't be offended.
Tom's special. Tom's special. I know him too well. But so does anybody else have any comments, or anybody in the audience have any comments about playing the bad guys or why we wargame, the two topics that we hit on tonight before we close out the show?
Yeah, we stayed on those topics really well. I mean, we were really laser focused this evening, as always.
Oh, that's. Well, I mean, you can beat a subject to death, or you can just discuss it, and everyone's going to have, I think, differences of opinion as to what is gameable, what's not gameable. I think most people would agree what can be gamed and what can't be gamed. As far as playing whatever side, I think that's really a personal preference. For whatever reason, you may not want to play a side. That's fine. Like I said before, I have no problem playing any side. And one of my favorite aspects of gaming in World War II is the East Front. Aside from the Pacific War, and obviously the Pacific, I want to play the Marines, but I can also play the Japanese too, and I have no problem playing either side. But when it comes to the East Front, I'll play the Germans just as fast as I'll play the Soviets. And I love playing in that area of the that theater of the war, and I despise both ideologies. I'm not supporting either one because they're both equally evil, and there could be arguments made as to the communists being far worse. But the bottom line is, it's a game, and if you keep it in perspective, you can enjoy it. And at the same time, by playing from the quote unquote bad guy's perspective, you're gaining more perspective on history and the war itself.
Exactly.
I think the bigger threat comes from outside of the hobby itself. I think the people who are attacking it are not necessarily war gamers themselves. They probably haven't ever played a war game. They just look at the theme like, oh, there's SS troops in here, and that the counters are black with lightning bolts on it. That looks evil, and these incels are sitting in their basement, mommy's basement, playing this game and dressed up, and they got Nazi flags on. That's what I'm saying. That's what they think, right? That's
what did you call it?
Incel.
Wow. The hell's an incel?
You know what an incel is. You haven't heard that term before?
No, I don't keep up on all the No, new
Let's not
slime.
go there.
Okay, here's a
But
different one.
Brian,
Virgin.
well, okay. So Brian has one. He says, just going back to Nate's comment earlier, The Perfect Horse by Elizabeth Letts is a great story. Check it out. That's what you were talking about earlier in the show about the horse. That Dave could make a game on that.
Glue Factory.
Yes, he definitely should make a game about that. It's all up his alley of the type of games that he makes.
And Stigler brings up a good point. He goes, hey, I usually end up playing the losing side anyway. Very true. I agree with you. I play the losing side more often than not.
Yeah, I still kick myself for that game that I lost to Rob from Rob's Tabletop, the Dave Thompson game that we played online that you moderated there, Mo.
Okay, yeah, the Blood on the Rails.
No, not the Under Rails. That sci-fi game that me and Rob played.
Yeah, it was Blood. Was it Blood on the Rails? Wasn't that the?
Not the title.
That's the subtitle of it. That was the one on the rail in the rail yard. That was For What Remains.
For What Remains. Thank you.
Yeah,
I couldn't
Blood
remember
on
the
the
damn name. Yeah. I still think about that game. I'm like, why did I do that? I just marched the victory point right up to him and let myself get killed. I still kick myself for losing that game because I lost it in such a dumb way, and I did it online where everyone could see. So, yeah.
It was classic.
I still love you.
Yeah, I got to get a rematch against Rob and beat him at something else. And speaking of which, Kev, I still need to beat you at Conflict of Heroes.
I know I suck. I need to get organized and get a game organized with you. I will try and correspond with you. I'll talk to your agent, and we'll see if we can't organize a time in the next 2 weeks or so.
Via Sennheiser. And John says, what's the most important aspect of a war game? That's a whole nother show, but
that's another show, man.
Quickly, if anybody can give an answer here in the chat.
Rule book. Got to be the rules. Components don't matter at the end of the day, right? You can play a war game with a sheet of paper that you draw hexes on and counters you just write letters on, right? All you need is dice and good system, right? Because if the system's bad, it doesn't matter how good the components are. I'm assuming I'm correct. You guys aren't giving me a little feedback.
No, I'm actually going through the questions over here. Kev, you got anything to say there?
I don't know what's going on. What happened? What did I do?
Maybe when I was telling you about
wardrobe, Todd's beaten me. He's beaten me soundly at Lock and Load Tactical several times. It is kind of pissing me off, so I do need a rematch. He keeps pulling out these bullshit World War II scenarios.
Damn. I'd have to watch my own boot camp series to be able to play that game again. It's been so long since I played.
Me too. It's been a while since I played. Now Kent brings up something that I'm surprised Stigler did not bring up. Most important aspect of a war game is clipped counters.
Oh, and before I forget to mention this though, when we were talking about Upfront earlier, there is a game coming out from Lock and Load soon that's going to be similar, right? It's not just like it, but it's in the ballpark. If you took Upfront and mixed it with Lock and Load Tactical, you would get Point Blank, I think. Right, real close approximation of it.
Yeah.
It's coming together nicely. I do have the boot camp series that I'm working on that still, but just keep in mind if you guys are watching that the components are changing as they go because they're still tweaking a little bit. So what you're seeing on screen isn't necessarily what's going to be the final product.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what'll have changed from the last time I saw it, which is a couple of years now. They're coming to Texas here in July, so they'll be local. You coming up, Kev?
I didn't know they were coming. That's cool.
You did not know? I'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
Dallas. I'll talk to you afterwards.
Are you that close to Dallas?
It's not. It is technically Dallas. It's Richardson where we're going to be playing. So.
Are you guys doing a convention or?
It's a little miniature convention. It's kind of like an invite thing with just a few people. So it'll be pretty cool. They're going to be out here, and they're going to be bringing out War in Europe. Going to hopefully have a prototype of that, and hopefully bring in Point Blank as well as a couple other games too.
Shouldn't they have a new World War 85 module coming soon as well?
Yeah. Kid's got any old ticket o'clock month now.
Well, World War 85 is just one of the tops. I mean, it was one of the best ones released last year before, whenever it released.
Yeah, it was last year. Fantastic bang for the buck. That's for darn sure. So if you have not grabbed that yet, make sure you do when it comes out on Kickstarter, because you're going to kick yourself if you don't, because there's a great value in that box. Listen to this. So John is trying to get in on this. He says, my wife has folks who lived in Richardson.
Ah, there you go.
There's your excuse to get over here.
Well, there's his green card too. What does he need to sleep
There's
with
your
me
green
for?
card, and then you can go from here, and you can hop over to North Carolina, and you can be snuggle buddies with Nate.
Yeah. I'm Big Spoon though.
That's just a bad visual.
I call Big Spoon. I do not like being Little Spoon.
On that note, all right, we're gonna call it a night here, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thanks for tuning in. And we will see you guys here. We're gonna try, if we can, maybe to get a second show in this month, because we were not able to get one in last month. But we'll see if our schedules all work out, and that way we can catch back up, and maybe we can dig into that next question about the most important aspect of Wargame on the next one. But everyone, thanks again for tuning in tonight, and we really appreciate it. Have a great night, everybody. See you next time.
Adios.
Later, guys.